welcome to the People Forward Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Carol Parker Walsh. As an expert in transformational leadership and human development, and the creator of People Forward Leadership, I'm here to help you create thriving, engaged teams and unstoppable leaders. In each episode, we'll explore the strategies and insights that will elevate your leadership impact and drive lasting results. Get ready for a transformative journey filled with actionable steps. Let's go. Welcome to the People Forward Leadership Podcast. We have the incredible honor to talk with leaders who are building cultures that accelerate human potential, strengthen performance, and keep people at the center of how results actually get delivered. And my guest today is Kate Azizi, who's the president of Oregon Health and Science University, or OHSU Foundation. Kate is an accomplished fundraising and advancement leader with more than 2 decades across academic medicine and higher education. She joined OHSU Foundation in 2024 after leading institutional advancement at the Medical University of South Carolina, where her team significantly increased dollars raised, nearly doubling fundraising over 4 years. Today, Kate is leading in a moment where the stakes and the impact are enormous. In 2025, OHSU announced Phil and Penny Knight's $2 billion commitment to the Knight Cancer Institute, supporting an integrated cancer care model and new governance structure designed to transform the patient experience. In our conversation today, we're going to unpack what People Forward leadership looks like when you're building trust across donors, clinicians, researchers, boards, and community at scale. Kate, I want to thank you for joining me and welcome to the show.
Great. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So one of the things I love to just start with is just that leadership through line, your why and how you got into what you're doing. You've led advancement at several institutions. You started your career in financial services sector before moving deeper into nonprofit and academic environments. And so I'm curious, what's the through line of your leadership journey and what moments most shaped how you lead today? And what ultimately pulled you into the mission of academic health and science fundraising as your life's work?
Great. Well, as you mentioned, I started my career in financial services industry. I did a management development program. And what this did was enabled me to work with different business groups and really learn about how operations were run in different business groups and financial services. And then I would give presentations to senior executives, which gave me a great experience of presenting to large groups and senior people at organizations. I moved to another financial services company after that. But really what I thought about was the thing that gave me joy in my everyday life was my volunteer work with nonprofits. So whether I was running a race for charity or I did work with an orphanage, I did teaching English as a second language when I was in college. And became involved with Habitat for Humanity. So there are a lot of different things that I got involved with. And I felt that that really gave me joy every day when I did those activities of my volunteerism. So I decided I wanted to move into the nonprofit world. But I really had no idea what jobs were even in the nonprofit industry. So one time I was watching this, it was around that time, and I watched this show on PBS, and it featured this program at a hospital that helped kids become more healthy. And it was an hour-long program, and I watched it, and I thought, that looks really interesting. And I gave a call to the person who was featured on the show, the director of the program at the hospital.
Wow.
And I said, I am working in financial services full-time, but I would love to help you for free at lunch and in the evening. So at lunchtime, I went into New York. It was called the Foundation Center. And I would go and look at grants that they could apply for. And then in the evenings, I would go to the hospital and participate in this program with families and do anything they needed me to do in exchange for me to learn about what this program was doing, all the research they were doing. And it was really interesting to me. And with that connection, I was able to get a reference and I took on a part-time temporary role managing an event for a nonprofit organization. And it was really just a great exposure to nonprofits and what they were doing and how I could help. And I could see all of these different nonprofits who the event was geared towards, how they had a mission. And so from there, I was able to, and so really like taking this part-time temporary job, I quit my job and moved into nonprofits. And I did, take a pay cut. I went into my savings. I was in my mid 20s, but I was really focused on getting into nonprofits. So I ended up taking on then a part-time, a full-time temporary job managing another event. And then finally, I got a full-time permanent job working for a nonprofit. And so worked for a couple nonprofits in New York. My husband's work moved us to North Carolina, and I wanted to move into higher ed fundraising. So I worked at NC State, got my MBA when I was there, and then moved to Chicago again for my husband's work. And I really wanted to work in academic medicine. It just was exciting to me. So with each of my jobs, I did a lot of cold calls. And I just would write to people and say, I really want to work for you. And here's my resume. And, I didn't know people in Chicago, but I was able to land a great job at the University of Chicago. Had stayed in touch with people from Northwestern from my original job search and eventually moved there. Then I moved to Medical University of South Carolina and led the program there in fundraising and academic medicine. And when I heard about this job at OHSU, I'd known about OHSU and the research happening. And when I met with people and met with the team and met with board, just I knew it was the place for me. So I would say my leadership really has been keeping my North Star in mind. I believe raising funds for academic medicine is an incredibly important thing. I love my work. I love the people I meet. I love working with donors. I love learning from faculty. I love putting together creative gift opportunities. And what I keep in mind is that my work is important because we raise money to advance research. We raise money to provide the best in clinical care, and we raise money to train the next generation of healthcare professionals. So that is my North Star, and I like to surround myself with really amazing people, and I feel lucky to have that here at OHSU Foundation.
Wow, that is quite the story. I mean, it says a lot about you and your leadership in terms of you seeing something, going after it, and making it happen. I have not heard of anyone who said I watched something and I got on the phone and called the people who I was watching to say, "Hey, let me help you. I can help you." And particularly in your 20s. I mean, that's pretty that says a lot about you right there, which I think is incredible. And I mean, what you talked about too is just a masterclass as a side note if anyone is thinking about am I really doing something that I love doing? Am I following my North Star? Because I love what you said that you had a skill set, but then you also had a passion for volunteering. And you were smart enough to make the connection that, I think I could probably take what I know and apply it into a different way of doing things so I'm making an impact. And you saw what you liked, you learned more about it, you took definitive action toward it and learned more and now stepped into it. I love that as a through line. And I think it also says a lot about, your leadership and probably the success that you've had in following that North Star and being tenacious about achieving that, which I think is great. And so, one of the reasons I asked that question is because for people for leadership, it starts with that ability to have that self-awareness. And that self-awareness clearly is something that has guided you in your work. It's how we lead people, it shapes how we lead people and how we move forward. What's the one thing about your style of leadership that you think people really love and one that you've had to work on so that it doesn't trip people up or cause them to, be a little bit maybe overwhelmed by something that's really powerful within your leadership style?
Yeah, I would say that I try to be as transparent as possible with my team. I think that's important. And I really think about what I experience with leaders over my career. I've worked with lots of different leaders, and I try to take the best that I've learned from those really amazing leaders and even the things that they did every once in a while that I appreciated. So, transparency. Another thing that my team really knows about me is that I really want people to be nice to each other. So you can give feedback, and I believe that being clear with feedback is kind. The saying "be clear," being clear is kind. But I really, sometimes if you have a high performer who's not being nice to people, that's not good to have on your team, and people know that about me. I would say that one of the things that I really feel is important is to strategize and then make action.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like to move things forward. And so I would say, one of our mantras this year is to be bold, which means taking smart risks, being creative, sharing ideas. And I really encourage that from throughout my whole team. I share this a lot. And I think that, sometimes there's a tendency to really strategize a lot. And then if, with different organizations, I mean, you strategize and then you have this analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like analysis paralysis, so I want to really move forward more quickly. So I think one of the things when I say let's move this forward now, we're ready, we're 80% there of what we know, and let's move it forward. And I think one of the things that people need to feel comfortable with is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Don't
Mm-hmm.
wait a long time to act. And if you fail, then you can learn from it. We all have failed, and we've all had experiences where in hindsight, you think, gosh, I wish I'd done this other thing, but you move forward with the best information you had at the time. So I think people moving forward quickly is something I really appreciate and enjoy. And I surround myself. I mean, when I think of the leadership team here at the foundation, they're just outstanding. When I think about the members of our team, they are so mission driven, so talented. I feel lucky to work with every member of my team every day. And so I want them to feel that empowerment to move things forward.
Yeah, I love that. I love that transparency, the feedback, and the phrase "be clear as kind," and the strategy and movement to action. And the key things that you talked about, I think, are really important. Taking smart risks, be creative, and share ideas. And it's clear in terms of how you've even moved in your career. That seems like a good summary of being strategy and taking bold moves to get where you're at when you are helping, when you're moving forward and you are looking at that 80% that's good enough to move forward so perfection doesn't keep become the enemy of doing good work. How do you move people who want that 100% perfection or are not overly comfortable with risks or want to move at a slower pace when you're at that, we're at 80%, we're good enough, we can move and then learn from, what happens after that to make any adjustments. How do you help people who may not quite be of the same mindset move forward?
Well, I share stories. I say, sometimes I get nervous too. I get nervous moving things forward. I think, God, do we know enough? Are we ready for this? Should I check in with this other person? So I think the transparent communication is important. So letting people know, but then also moving forward. And say it is scary, and we all have that feeling. I also think storytelling is really
Mm,
important when sharing these ideas with people. And one of the short stories that I shared was working at an organization, and there was an opportunity brought forward by a potential donor who could give a very significant amount of money in a certain area. And so I brought that back, and there was a lot of discussion throughout the organization at high levels and within our team to say, Now, who should be in the meeting to figure out what the gift opportunity will be? And so there was a meeting to discuss that. And then there was, this group should come together to talk about this gift opportunity that we'll present to this big donor. And then that meeting, was called together, and probably a month and a half had passed because it was so hard to get all these really important people together. And then, there was a discussion, how is this going to move forward? And then, unfortunately, we read about that donor making a very significant gift to another organization in the area
Mm,
that we were going to share with them.
wow.
So what that meant was that the kind of thinking in the background, you don't always have time. You have to be nimble and you have to take smart risks. And so that's the thing that I want to avoid. And that's what I share with the team. I say, we need to move quickly and we need to make decisions and elevate things at the right time. And, be ready. We have so much great work going on at OHSU. When you think of the research and the science that's done here, that's done nowhere else in the world,
Mm,
some of the clinical care that we're providing, we are the only place doing certain clinical care. And we're educating so many people throughout Oregon. There's a national healthcare shortage. So when we think about all those things, we want to think about how we can be nimble, how we can be ready, how we can be creative and elevate and move things forward quickly.
I love that. And I love at the foundation of that, you talked about vulnerability and storytelling and using those as tools to help with that agility and being nimble and creative and things of that nature to really foster that. That's really great. Um, I want to turn to talk about your big team, right? Because managing teams can be very challenging and complex and
Mm.
complicated. And in your world, team is bigger than just an organizational chart. It includes donors and boards and clinicians and researchers and staff and community. And there's so many things within that ecosystem. How do you build trust across that ecosystem so that people can execute together without burning out or breaking relationships?
Well, I think I try to communicate a lot. And so, for example, I send an email to my whole team, the whole foundation team, every Friday. They call it my Friday email. And
Hmm.
I just tell them what I've been up to that week. I'm sure I'll mention this podcast in tomorrow's email. And I'll share things going on and topical things, just a couple paragraphs. I write it on Friday afternoons, and it's a way for me to connect with the team. I also send an email to the boards every other week, and I tell them the work that I'm doing, and that our whole team is doing. I think with my team, I really, I have an amazing leadership team, as I've mentioned, and I like them to feel empowered. They have a lot of autonomy. I like to have great people work for me who move things forward, and they come to me when they need barriers broken down. They need to talk through strategy. I'm here for them to talk through any type of issues they're having or ideas. And I also want them to feel empowered because again, I think back to my experience as an employee and what I liked. And I performed best when I felt my manager trusted me
Hmm.
and when I could move forward with projects and that they were there to support me and help me. So I try to be that person for my team. And when we think about the community as well and all those donors and alumni, we have great team members here who help with our communications that go to our donors. We have different work with alumni as well. And we just have a lot of, I mean, we all believe in the mission. We all believe in raising funds to support OHSU because that is our duty at the OHSU Foundation, but also working to communicate is really important. And I think we all have that feeling that we want to communicate with all our different constituents. I
Mm.
also try to get out in the community a lot. I really love to participate in different activities throughout Portland and beyond. Like, for example, last night I was at the Say Hey event with Partners in Diversity. That was really wonderful. Our new president of OHSU, Sharif Elnahal, was honored at that event. And it's just a great way to bring people together, but all kinds of different events and activities. I really try to get out in the community. I was at the Executives of the Year with Portland Business Journal and, all different kinds of events and activities throughout the city. I love to be involved and I love to continue to build my network.
Yes. And you'll continue that when you win your award next month as one of
Yeah.
the women of influence, which is
Yes.
congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you. It's a big honor and it's such an amazing group of women I'm in the company of for that award. And you got it last year. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I love what you said about communication and being available and empowering your team and I'm sure with everything you're managing, I mean, time is of the essence, right? You have so many things you have to focus on that you need to be able to support your team. And I want to talk about that a little bit because I believe that healthy cultures have decision clarity and they are able to be able to pass decisions down, to push decisions down, let people make their decisions, and to remove the barriers and support them, as you talked about. And a lot of that is really about delegation. So when you were talking about the ways you empower your team, how do you intentionally push decision making down, and how do you build that capability and confidence so that others can own those outcomes and take the reins and run with it?
Well, I tell them directly that I say, I really want you to make these decisions, and I hire great people who are, I don't have experience in data management like our assistant vice president of advancement services has. I don't have the experience our CFO has. So I really turn to them and let them know that they have that, but I'm here for them at the same time. And when they come to me with questions or strategic counsel that they need, we talk through it. And I say, well, what do you think? And another thing that I really like my team to do is if someone comes to me with an issue, I say, did you talk to that other person who's leading that other team that you had the issue with? And, before they come to me, I want them to go to the source. So that's something that I think about because I think it's a really healthy way to manage differing opinions is to go directly to the source, not to come to your manager and ask me to kind of manage it unless they've tried that already.
Hmm.
So I think that's really important for me to help teach them skills that I've learned over time because
Mm.
we all learn and I continue to learn from my whole team. So, and not just the senior leadership team, there are ideas that come up from throughout the organization that I love hearing, innovative ideas. We could do this process better this way. Great, let's try it.
Mm.
So I think that really welcoming those innovative ideas. In fact, we have an award that we give. It's called the Boulder Award,
Mm.
and we actually have these little painted rocks that the team members painted, and people get those Boulder Awards when they do something that's bold, and it can be bold in any way. And so that's really a fun way to incorporate that.
That is amazing. And I love that these practical examples. And so if I may, often I talk about trusting the expertise on your team, right? You brought them in there for a reason, so trust the expertise that you have there. And you just outline how, for example, your VP has his data management skills, and so you know that that skill exists, so you can rely on it. I often talk about, being a coaching leader, meaning you want to ask more than you tell. And you gave a great
Mm,
example of that. When they have a question, you ask them, what do they think about it? Right. And so
mm,
you're giving live practical examples of these things and fostering cross collaboration communication. Right. So if there's something that they want to address with someone else on the team, that you're inviting them to be able to not just be in a silo, but actually connect to the other people on the team. And I love where you teach leadership skills. You're teaching what you already know, and that's how you elevate the people on your team and make them critical thinkers and and equip them with the tools that they need to have to be the next generation
mhm.
leaders by teaching them your skills. And I love the Innovation Award. The Boulder Award is so amazing because what you're doing is rewarding the behavior that you want to foster in your culture and on your team. And so I talk about these things from a technical perspective sometimes, but I love that you gave practical examples of some of the key aspects of what it means to create that empowered ecosystem where people are feeling supported and can be elevated, and really be successful in what they're doing so that you can function at the level that you need to as a leader of so many things that are going on. So I thank you for that.
Oh, sure. And I want to add that the Boulder Award was an idea from the team, and painting the rocks and
Mm,
having that as an activity after one of our staff meetings was an idea from the team. So
so
they
great.
took the bold idea and brought it into an award and the presentation of that. And so, that's people from our HR team, our HR lead, as well as people from different teams who just happened to like crafting and thought that would be a fun activity. So it really went over well, and people can go and pick the little rock or boulder that they want to
Yeah.
award. They can look through all the selection of painted rocks, and it's really cute. It's fun.
That is so great. I love that so much. So, your foundation's stated values include alignment, compassion, equity, integrity, collaboration, and impact. Those words really matter when they show up in behavior. So, what does psychological safety look like in practice on your team, especially when goals are aggressive and they're being innovative and taking those risks and when the outcomes really matter?
Psychological safety is very important to me. And in fact, we're going through a strategic planning exercise now. And I brought that up last week with our senior leadership team and the consultant who's working with us on our strategic plan. It's important to me because it's something that I appreciate feeling myself. And if you haven't felt that way, it's something it's even hard to describe. But I try to really bring that to our team, um, and not just through me, but through our leadership and through our whole culture throughout. So the not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, or failure is okay. That's something you can learn from. And so I think that really, an example of that, that I'm thinking of different examples, but if someone doesn't do something the way I wanted them to, but I hadn't told them how I wanted them to do it, it's not fair to expect them to read my mind.
Hmm.
So, when I say, hey, I want you to do it in this way, and I realize I didn't tell you that. So just moving forward, if you could do that. So that makes them feel like, okay, I could have done it better, but it's not like a huge mistake because I wasn't told to do that in the first place, you know?
Hmm.
And so I want to acknowledge that. I also, telling stories about myself and taking risks and how I was nervous. I think that, I changed up our holiday card this year, and I told that story. So we often have a holiday card that's a winter scene on the campus, and this year I changed it up because I really wanted to show people on it, and I wanted to show
Mm.
people who'd been impacted by OHSU. So there was actually a patient of KCI Institute who saw snow for the first time,
Wow.
thanks to some therapy that she had at KCI Institute that was really novel. And she was a teenager, and so there was a picture on the front of this patient and her mom, and the snow was falling in front of them. And on the back, it described that she was seeing snow for the first time in that picture and
Mm,
how that was made possible. But usually people don't get a card with two people's faces on the front from the foundation president at OHSU. So it was taking a risk. But the feedback I got from that was so positive because people said it showed the impact of the work and it made me think
mm.
about it. And in fact, someone told me her husband had looked at it and said, "Why are there two people on the card?" And she said, "Read it again." And so he did. And then he said, "I love this so much. I want to do this for my company card next year." So,
Wow.
to show the impact on people, because we're really all about people. We're about the people that work here and do the research, who do the training and teaching. It's about our students. It's about our clinical employees and our patients. It's about the foundation team members and how deeply they care about the mission. It's about the donors who want to give back and feel so happy when they can give back and make a difference.
Yeah.
It's all about people, and so for that reason, I think that just when you think about how you can have an impact and how you could share that impact with both team members and people throughout the community, it's just important to remember that. Another North Star.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say, I love that. One of the things about psychological safety is you talked about, which was, failing forward or learning from it, realizing it's not the be all that ends all. But I love how you model it, how you model vulnerability as a leader, how you model taking risks as a leader, how you model stepping into something new and trying something new to see what happens for your team. And this card example is a perfect example of let's try something different. Let's see how it lands. And wow, look at the impact. And you learn something from taking that risk that's going to make a difference. And it's changing communities and lives and other organizations for the better based on that. And so I love how you position yourself as the model. You just don't tell people, but you show up in that way as well.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's really important.
thanks.
So in 2025, as I mentioned before, you got this $2 billion commitment to the Nye Cancer Institute, connecting to an integrated cancer care model. And as you've said, you mentioned that you were really humbled to play a part in that kind of transformational philanthropy. Without sharing anything confidential, what did it require of your leadership to align partners and people around something that big and keep it human all the way through?
Well, I think that, first of all, to Phil and Penny Knight, I mean, we are so incredibly grateful to them. They have been donors and leaders for OHSU for so many years, and giving this gift just shows the kind of people they are, and I'm just so grateful to them. And really, there was a very small group of people working on this project. And it was not public that we were working on this project until we announced it in August. And I think what we had was really a great trust in each other, a lot of sharing of information, and I think the belief in what this philanthropy could do, not
Mm,
just for OHSU, not just for the Knight Cancer Institute, but for the world. And you know, we're just honored and humbled to be able to work on it. And we always kept in mind what this would do for patients and their families.
mm,
And we all believed in it. So I
mm.
think it's when I talked about the North Star, that's really important. I remember I worked with a dean and at another institution, and he talked about he actually was also a cancer center director, and he talked about this story that really influenced me. And he said he was driving his daughters to some type of sporting event, and they were in like Tennessee or something, and they were driving, and they said, "Dad, where are we going?" And he said, they said, I think we're lost. And he said, no, we're going north. We're going north. And he said, it's the same with work. You really keep in mind your North Star, what your major goal is. And that is what we had in that project. We had the North Star of believing and knowing what that philanthropy could do, and just making it happen, and that immense sense of gratitude that we felt each day.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think I may know the answer to this question, but I'm still going to ask because I think you've articulated it so beautifully throughout this interview. But many of our listeners are COOs and CEOs and senior leaders trying to build teams that perform under pressure and to be effective and to support their people and deliver incredible results. What can leaders outside philanthropy borrow from your world about trust, listening, and alignment to build high-performing people-forward cultures?
Well, I think remembering that your team is their people and they have lives that are outside of work, and whether that's children or caring for parents or a hobby that's really important to them or pets or whatever it is. And remembering that people have that in their lives. And so I think, for me, I always express to the team that family comes first, or what that is. They need to work on their job, of course, but if something comes up, I'm going to let them, they need to go and take care of what it is, and I need to support them, and the whole team needs to support them. So I think that's really important. And I really also try to let people have their weekends and evenings, because I remember I worked for a person who, for the first time in my career, didn't send me emails on weekends or in evenings or when I was on vacation. And I had never experienced that, because my work, I kind of felt like it followed me everywhere
Yeah.
and every day and in the evening. And I remember I said to him, I said, "Oh my gosh, that was so nice. I didn't get a single email when I was on vacation." He said, "Well, you need that time to recharge. You need that time to be with your family." And so I've taken that with me as a great lesson from that person, who did that. And so I try to do the same thing. I occasionally will send something on a weekend or an evening, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
So I find that gets, they, if they see something, they look at that. But I want I want to have that type of work. So I think respecting people and their time, is important, and respecting their personal lives. But I think I think that's very important. And then also giving people that autonomy, and empowerment and a feeling of trust, because if I've found that if people didn't trust me, it made me second guess myself, and I wasn't
Mm.
as effective.
Hmm.
So I find that when I trust, people who've proven themselves and they've done a great job and they're very skilled and experienced, they can be much more productive and much better at their jobs and grow. And another thing I like to do when we have the talent pool internally is to promote from within.
Mm.
Because if we don't promote from within and grow great people, then they will leave and go elsewhere. And so I think it's really important to grow people from within and recognize those strengths.
Hmm.
Finally, the last thing I'll say is that giving praise is free, and giving specific praise is really important. So say, I really loved how you handled that meeting. I loved when you gave that presentation. You were so clear. Giving very specific feedback will not only help people see what they're doing well, but it will encourage that work in the future. And it makes people feel good. It makes me feel good if someone
Hmm.
says that.
Yeah.
I remember compliments from years past that were meaningful and specific, and I keep those with me on a rainy day.
Mm. That is so great. I love that. Yeah, specificity means everything. And those are the ones you do remember. So I so appreciate that. I do want to just ask one final question, and that is about you talked a lot about your North Star, which I think is incredible. How would you just speak to leaders who are maybe needing to find that or feeling confident in following it if they do have it, to know that it is the kind of guidepost for them in terms of their leadership and their work and what they want to accomplish?
Well, I think, reading a lot, reading is something I love to do, and I always get new ideas from reading and listening to podcasts. And I think if you're really thinking about what is my North Star, what's important to me, I think giving yourself the time to think is
Mm,
important. And whether that's going for a walk or a run or, um, you know, just taking some time to sit on your couch, to think. I think that's really great. I love making lists, things that I really love. I also like, I remember when I was going to take this job, this nonprofit part-time temporary role managing an event. My now husband, who um, he works remotely actually, so we were able to make this move. And I remember he said to me probably almost 25 years ago, he said, this will be a great thing for you. And you will make up that salary in the future because you believe in this. And he really encouraged me. So I think having people to help encourage you and talk to is great. Another thing that I've found is that if you ask someone to be a mentor, I have never had anyone say no.
mm,
It's a huge compliment. Um, and I think that another thing, reaching out with cold calls. It's funny because I went to a conference recently led by someone named Shauna Hawking, who actually wrote a book called One Bold Move a Day. It's a great book. You should check it out.
I
But
will.
I had described myself as the queen of cold calls. But in reading her book, I know she was also the queen of cold calls. So it was kind of funny. But pick up the phone or send an email to someone to say that you really admire what they do for work and you'd love to learn about it. Network, think about people in your working life who have been mentors to you and pick up the phone and say, I just appreciate your mentorship. Because people who have been my mentors for many years have helped me. They even helped me select this job to
Mm.
come here. So mentors are super important. So I think look at your network, do a lot of thinking, do a lot of reading, listening to podcasts and books, and um, figuring out what's next. And don't be afraid to be bold and take that move and take that action.
So great. Thank you so much. You've dropped some incredible gems on this episode, and I so appreciate everything that you shared. It has definitely been a masterclass in leadership and definitely learning and following your North Star. So thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Listen, and if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a leader who's trying to build trust at scale and subscribe so you don't miss the next incredible conversation like I had here today with Kate. And until next time, keep leading people forward. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the People Forward Leadership Podcast. If you're ready to implement the insights and strategies shared in today's episode, schedule a call with our team to explore how we can help you drive talent retention, boost engagement, and develop extraordinary people forward leaders in your organization. Plus, be sure to visit our website to access additional resources that will support your growth goals. Until next time, keep leading your people with purpose and confidence. And remember, when your people thrive, organizational success is inevitable.